Good news, everyone! Talking Futurama is coming back for Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2.
Fresher than a summer ham, this podcast comes every Friday. And if you sign up at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can hear each episode as it goes live.
That's right. Sign up today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $5 to hear Talking Futurama every Friday throughout the rest of 2020 and also all the previous episodes we've done so far.
So head over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons now, or we're going to clamp you.
Shut up and take my money.
I heartily endorse this event or product.
Ahoy hoy everybody, welcome to Talking Simpsons, the podcast that's listed in the Encyclopedia Self-Destructica. I am one of your hosts, the Angry Yawner, Bob Mackey, and this is our chronological exploration of The Simpsons. Who else is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I was so gay, but I couldn't tell anybody.
And who do we have on the line?
My name is Matt McMuscles. Will he destroy this episode of Talking Simpsons? Maybe, but we're not really sure. But the answer, of course, is yes.
Or is it? And today's episode is Behind the Laughter.
Tonight, The Simpsons, as you've never seen them before, on Behind the Laughter.
Today's episode aired on May 21st, 2000, and as always, Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real-world history.
Oh boy, Bobby, in a very behind-the-music type moment, rapper 50 Cent is shot 9 times, but survives. In a very Matt McMuscles moment, Daikatana is released for the PC. And in pro wrestling news, The Undertaker debuts his American Badass persona at the Judgment Day pay-per-view.
So that was when he became a celebrity of getting shot, before he became a celebrity of rap.
50 Cent, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
It's a shame that history never really got better from then on out. You have American Badass Undertaker, the birth of 50 Cent. Like that, you can't do better than this year.
2000 was the last year. Everything was bad after that, for sure.
So, like, I'm not very clear on this American Badass rebranding of The Undertaker. Did he only bury, like, the war dead? Like, he would only bury coffins wrapped in flags.
Well, he definitely became a very flag-worshiping guy, even before 2001, though. I mean, Undertaker now is like 100% a Blue Lives Matter dude. That's who he is, and also an exotic cat owner too. So
so he's going to be murdered by one of his pets soon.
Hey, the Undertaker's too tough for that, man. But yes, the American Badass was his new rebranding because he had been, basically a goth, tough guy, and this was him just throwing that all away, and he's like, nah, I'm just on a motorcycle. You call me the Undertaker, but I'm just like a biker dude now.
That's a downgrade.
But he would come out to American Badass,
It is
though.
in some ways, but it's not in others, because of course he had Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit as his theme songs, and just 2000. Like, you couldn't, and plus that's what he wanted. Like, the actual guy, the Undertaker, like Mark Calloway, he's like, oh, this is what I wanted to be all along. This is me, the real me, how I like to be. And like, everyone hated it, and he was bitter at everyone for not liking it.
Yeah, it was weird. And about 4 years after that, he'd kind of re-debut as Spooky Undertaker, but he's like still kind of like, no, I have cool tattoos, and I'm still kind of a tough guy who's also in MMA, but sometimes druids with flames will walk me to the ring. But yeah, the 50 Cent shooting, this was before he was a particularly famous rapper, and then, I think a year or two after this was when the marketing push for him as the new big rapper began, related to, like, hey, he got shot 9 times. Like, Chris Rock had a very funny bit about it, that when I say 50 Cent was shot 9 times, I just hear Chris Rock's voice in my head, which I will not imitate on this podcast.
Who are you, Jimmy Fallon? He
God.
got blood all over my sand, this 50 Cent.
Yeah, like, man, we need another 50 Cent game, but I think he's too rich from the water. He doesn't need anything else.
He could be a Fortnite skin or something. But Daikatana, I know, Matt, you must be fascinated by this as well. We can't mention Daikatana without mentioning the ad campaign. Not thought of by the creator of the game, but the classic ad John Romero's about to make you his bitch. Suck it down. People knew the names of first-person shooter directors in the year 2000. This was the age of like the Rockstar developers, and now I think people just know like, oh yeah, Miyamoto and Kojima.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well,
like, do you know who directs Assassin's Creed games?
Can't think. Sadly, I know who Mojang is, but I
Yeah.
don't want to. But
You mean Notch?
Notch? So.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
he develops
sadly.
like stomach problems in his candy room. That's all he makes now.
Unfortunately, when you say the words Notch, sadly always appears right after. But Daikatana is weird because for that particular ad, even as a kid, I was like, yeah, make you his bitch. That's cool. But Suck It Down actually offended me. I was like, oh, that's too much. And I loved DX at the time. We were all about sucking something.
Yeah.
So there's something weird about that tagline. Like when people talk about it, like Suck It Down is always like, really? This is the weirder part to me. It's very strange. But
Yeah.
A marketing executive talked John Romero into doing this. He was like, I don't know. That I think it was not more about it being offensive, but it's like, what is this telling anyone about the game? Like, this isn't anything. And they're just like, no, it's got to be edgy and it'll grab headlines. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right, it would. But then, it's not like it hurt its sales. It's not like someone said like, oh, I'm never going to buy Daikatana because of that ad. People were like, I'm never going to buy Daikatana because it's Daikatana. It's terrible.
The reviews told me not to. But yeah, you're totally right, Matt. People never reference the Suck It Down part. I think they're just too hung up on the word bitch, which is in the ad. But it was an interesting time when you could be like, why don't we threaten our customers with sexual violence? I think that'd be fun. And they really do the eye-catching ad with the bright orange background, black text on it.
Well, like, bitch puts a period on the end of the sentence. You don't need to think of the next thing. Maybe also they wanted to just put suck it, but they were informed like WWE had the copyright on that.
Right.
So they're like, well, we got to add down to it.
I mean, really, even in like Nintendo Power and magazines, like they would always have those really gross ads, like around 2000. Like it'd always be really weird, like jars filled with toenails because I don't know the reason why, and like they would just have pictures of weird shit, like burnt toast, or even like a few years earlier in '95, all our emotional scars are derived from that one commercial for Yoshi's Island where a man explodes.
Yes, yeah.
Like it was the style at the time.
I recommend that people look up issues of the magazine PC Accelerator, which was basically a lad mag in the U.S. for PC gamers, and it's everything you think it would be, and I'm sure that Daikatana ad popped up in it several times.
And Matt, you on your video channel, you have, I believe, you definitely have a Wahhappen for Daikatana, right?
I do.
Yeah, and well, I guess let's, formally welcome back Matt McMuscles to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
It's the highlight of the season. I think it's the best episode of season 11.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. This is a real treat to get to finish up season 11, and also to have on Matt, who you've been doing a lot of playthroughs, but your one for Simpsons Hit and Run has been especially awesome because me and Bob got featured in it, and that's
yes.
But it's also just really
we like
fun.
it because we're in it.
Yes.
The time this episode airs, I'll actually have gotten back to finishing that. Unfortunately, the Halloween spooky season kind of delayed a lot of work on it because I'm like, oh great, I legally am obligated that like most videos this month or that month rather need to be somewhat spooky themed. But hopefully by the time this podcast airs, I will have gotten back on that and finished it up because I was enjoying it. And you guys, even in some episodes that you're not in, you're still used as a running gag, which is great.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, this episode, who was watching a lot of Behind the Music at the time? Weren't we all? I was watching it any time there'd be a new one on VH1.
It just was when you could just leave the TV on and there'd just be marathons of this, and you could just like be playing, Game Boy Advance and just having it behind you. And yeah, I really feel like this this and I Love the Blank years, I think they really influence like millennial content creators like us, where it's like we want to know everything about a subject and then be very clever about it.
Yes.
And I think these shows really influenced all of us.
You know, I hate to admit it, but you're right, Bob. This way of salaciously, the behind the music style and the many, many imitators, their salacious way of explaining the arc of someone's career, like I think that informed so much about how even podcasters today discuss people's careers. And on top of that, all the I Love the Blanks, like I think that definitely influenced listicle culture and then podcast culture as well.
Like I've used jokes in this particular episode in my What Happened videos because behind the music style shows, this was what informed me about how they were, because Canadian moment here, we did not have MTV. Maybe if you got like a really expensive cable service that could pick it up, but what we had was Much Music, which is the lamer, friendlier Canadian version of MTV, and they could only play like scraps of what MTV could. So behind the music wasn't a regular thing. Like I never remembered seeing it like on at the time. I had seen like 1 or 2 episodes like later on, but of the time of this episode's airing, like I didn't know what behind the music was.
And apparently it went on until like 2014. They must have had phases because I just remember it being like they made this at the perfect time when the show started in 97. The show was probably written in 98, definitely written in 98. So it was like the time when it was just exploding. Unfortunately, everybody did their behind the music sketch before this episode came out.
It's great on the commentary to hear Matt Selman go like, yeah, I know. We know Saturday Night Live and Mr. Show and every other show did a behind the music parody and we're late to it.
Mr. Show did one. That's right.
Yeah, there's fucking rule. It's this and Mr. Show's one of the Corey Feldman parody. Those are tied as my all-time favorites of the parody of behind the music.
And like Zoomers must have no idea what the fuck this is or why the show took this format for one episode if they're going through like Disney Plus. Ask your parents, I guess. But these are all like on YouTube, right? No one's protecting these.
Well, some are and some aren't. So like the full MC Hammer one just on YouTube, like complete, and I watched the Guns N' Roses one. But when I tried ahead of this recording to watch the TLC one, which was a real favorite of mine, especially hearing the late Left Eye just happily describe like burning down her boyfriend's house, like that one, I think it's getting content claimed on the music because you hear their voices and then they try to quiet down the music as much as possible, and it's just too distracting. But there were so many I loved. But I did look into it. Yeah, so it debuted August 1997 with 2 of the best they ever did. Like that was their pilot program of Milli Vanilli and MC Hammer. And they're like, oh, they could easily find MC Hammer, but they actually had to do some digging to find Milli Vanilli. And in August 1997, showing a thing that's like, hey, what did ever happen to those guys? They just kind of disappeared. And here's your explanation. And they talk to tons of people, and you get fun, salacious stuff of like, I did so many drugs, or I had all this sex, or just tons of fun stories. And those 2 were such huge hits. The MC Hammer one was such a big hit, they actually made a TV movie on VH1 based on it.
And they even made like a tongue-in-cheek one for Weird Al. I love that one. That's when he debuted his new look, which is now 20-plus years old.
I remember there was a bit in there where they're just like, they said, do you have any girlfriends? He's like, people have, even family members have wondered if I'm gay because I do not publicly date anybody. But yeah, the other great ones like Leif Garrett's one, that one was so memorable that they did a joke about it on Family Guy, that it was a sign that Brian Griffin was very depressed because he knew all the words to the Leif Garrett behind the music.
And this actually reminds me a little bit of the Mission Hill episode about the real world, where it was this like one little bubble of time, and the show is like, we've all seen this, right? We know all these moments from these episodes, but now people would just be lost. But the good thing is you don't need to know what behind the music is to find these jokes funny.
Yeah, because there's a million imitators of it too, and its style was really like captured by pretty much everybody else. But I like to, though, there were tons of parodies, but as Scully explains on the commentary, thanks to his like friendship with the co-creator of the series, Gay Rosenthal. He was able to just work directly with them. Like, here's the real graphics, and they just sub in laughter for music and make it look exactly like it with all the sounds. Like, so it is the perfect parody of it with all the right signifiers for it, and the voice of Jim Forbes, who is the journalist. He's apparently, his first job was a journalist, but his voiceover is just so perfect. He's been doing that for years and years and years, and he'll still do a behind the music parody if you hire him for it. I think he's so I looked up the history of the show too. So debuted 97. With those first two that actually don't have the Jim Forbes voice. Then they did over 100 of them after that with Jim Forbes, and they pretty much had done everything they could with like every band you'd ever care about. They even had to do like Behind the Year 1979. That's or right. Whatever.
And on the commentary they say the worse the band, the better the episode.
Oh yes,
like the Styx one is very good.
Oh, I love that Styx. Now you're getting all these memories for me, because it's all about the rest of the band going like, Mr. Roboto sucked. Like, we didn't want to make a musical. We're a rock band, and it's just about how much they hate the other guys in the band, which they do perfect with Homer in here, of when Marge goes like, I think we had real chemistry. I wanted to fire her every day.
Just to shake things up.
And yeah, so they pretty much ended episodes in... They stopped doing new episodes in about 2005, then brought it back in 2010 with the remastered series, which was basically just going back to the ones they'd done before and updating them with like 12 to 10 years of new information. Then in 2013, they did their last original one. So over 230 episodes, if you count the remastered episodes of Behind the Music. And Gay Rosenthal would go on to create Little People, Big World.
Oh, so, wow. Okay. I did watch a lot of that for some reason.
Yeah. She is a queen of reality television. And yeah, I mean, this, again, in 2000, I think when I first saw this, I did think Behind the Music parodies were a little played out. Even then, I'd seen them for like 2 years straight. But I did like this episode, and it also briefly scared me into thinking it was a secret series finale at the very end.
I think it's also, what I took away from it this time, it's a love letter to the show and also a hate letter.
Yes.
I love how much it makes fun of itself and how corny the show can be, especially in the early years.
Well, yeah, and man, I mean, you were still watching regularly at this time, and you were excited for this season finale when it aired?
When I would never hear that much about, like, you know, episodes being the season finale. Like, I wasn't keeping track or, you know, counting them down or anything. So I'd just be, whenever the Simpsons would be on, which usually for me, I think was on Sundays, because again, like our TV channels were kind of limited. Like, I would always just be generally excited whenever there was an episode on. I'd usually tell my family, like, leave me alone for like 21 minutes, please. Because yeah, I was absorbing like every episode. And like, yeah, I do have a lot of good memories. Like, I'm sure you already talked about before, but like in general, because the Behind the Music thing wasn't as ingrained, like I wasn't that familiar with that show. I always kind of prefer the 138th episode Spectacular from season, what was that, season 10?
Yeah, it was 8. Yeah. And
that was 8.
That has more than a little in common with this one. Yeah.
Yeah, especially
but it's weird. I've never listened to either episode with commentary, but like I've always kind of wondered, like, because these are the most fourth wall breaking episodes you could possibly have, right? Especially the 130th episode, because there's no framing device from an outside source. It's just Troy McClure. Yeah, The Simpsons is a fake show, you know, but I'm a character from The Simpsons. So is there any like thought process behind why we want to like break down the show and really sort of poke fun of it in this way, like so overtly, other than like, you know, a character winking at the camera or anything like that? Like, what was their thought process behind doing episodes like this?
So before we get a comment, it was season 7. Okay, I just want to make sure that's out there.
Bob. Thank you. I messed up there.
But also, I think what informed the 130th episode Spectacular was the fact that they hated making clip shows. So Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein wanted to make a special clip show, but also the person writing it was writing it against their will. It was a contractual obligation that they didn't want to do. So it was naturally like, you want a show? I'll give you a show. kind of thing, which is why all the
Right.
clip shows are shitty, because they're being done against their will, which is why they didn't really do them.
Well, this borders on clip show at a couple times.
Yes.
Like, it's a full. I'd love to. We've interviewed Mark Kirkland before, but that was before we'd done this episode. I want to interview him again because I wonder if this episode, like, there's less full animation in this one than a typical one, but it seems also much more complicated to do animation-wise.
There's like 1,000 cuts in this episode.
Yeah, and so many times they have to like hold on an image for much longer, so you have to, I think, take those images more seriously, or that you got to be even more dedicated if you're going to have, like, okay, it's the 18th magazine cover of The Simpsons here.
Or when you draw Crustophinia.
Yeah.
Or like whenever the narrator makes an allusion to, like, bad news coming, it cuts to like 6 or 7 different objects each time, like a woodpecker chewing at an olive branch or anything. There's a lot that goes on. It's very quick, this show. It's like very fast paced.
And they also had to like fake documentary footage of like, well, we still kept filming Marge as this narration started, but she has to like look at her fingers. So how do you time that out? How many extra seconds of Marge just sitting there do you do? Like, yeah, it definitely seems like a more complicated one to do than usual.
My only wish for this episode is that they got rid of the traditional opening, but it is funny that it goes from that to the opening again.
Yes, yeah.
Where it kind of fools you into thinking you're going to watch the opening a second time.
I guess for Fox, they couldn't air the commercials the same if it didn't have the full opening and then commercials and then the show.
The Simpsons will be right back.
We promise this podcast isn't full of ready to sting bees. And a big thank you to this week's guest, the awesome Matt McMuscles, good friend of the show. Always love having him on. You should check out all the cool videos he does, both on his Patreon and on his YouTube channel. I mean, especially check out the great Simpsons reference ones he does about where he plays through Simpsons Hit and Run that me and Bob have even gotten to guest star on. Thanks again, Matt. And also a big thank you to our listeners this week at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Those supporters help me and Bob do this as our full-time job, and they get so many benefits that you guys listening gotta take advantage of. $5 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons gets you a week early access to every episode we do of Talking Simpsons. You could be hearing next week's episode right now, and you also get that week early access and ad-free for our sister podcast, What a Cartoon, where me and Bob cover an animated series in the same style as Talking Simpsons. That's a lot of fun. And you get access to our many exclusive to Patreon mini-series where, in podcast form, we cover shows as diverse as Futurama, King of the Hill, The Critic, and Mission Hill in the same in-depth Talking Simpsons style. We just finished talking about the second season of Futurama, and there's so much more cool stuff to come. So please, $5 a month, all you need to hear it if you sign up at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. But if you want something as luxurious as MC Hammer's home, you might want to sign up at the $10 level to get even more podcasting fun at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Why, in addition to all that $5 stuff, you'd get our monthly What a Cartoon movie podcast, where me and Bob break down a different animated feature film in the same style as Talking Simpsons, often for over 4 hours, sometimes even coming in close to 5 hours long. If a movie is as complex as, say, The End of Ava, which me and Bob talked about big time, and that is for December. In next month, we're going to be talking about Dexter's Laboratory Ego Trip. If you checked out the previous months, you'd hear us talk about Wallace and Gromit Curse the Were-Rabbit, and there's a giant back catalog, over 100 hours of What a Cartoon movies. You'd get instant access to all of those if you are a $10 and up subscriber at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And in addition to all those previous What a Cartoon movies, you'd also get all of that $5 stuff I just talked about. Please consider signing up at the premium level to get everything, plus our Talking Simpsons Season 11 deleted scenes commentary. We put a lot of work into that one and had a ton of fun. You want to hear us chat about those season 11 deleted scenes. There's some crazy ones in there. You can only see that if you're a $10 and up subscriber at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. So please consider signing up today. But yes, after the regular old opening, then it comes to our introduction to Behind the Laughter.
Surfing a tidal wave of hilarity onto the sands of Superstar Bay. But behind the chortles, this funny fivesome was trapped in a private hell.
Everybody wanted a piece of us.
They told us what to wear, how to dress, which clothes we should put on.
The cops found me driving on the sidewalk. I had no business hosting the Oscars. After the show, Meryl Streep spit on me.
Man, the transitions in this are so like Meryl Streep spits, but the spit goes into the Simpsons living room and hits the picture of them and knocks it over. Like there are so many amazing transitions that are just so overwrought in this episode on purpose.
Yeah.
It's a nice twist because you are expecting like slow motion, like spit, like glob hitting Lisa's cheek, and you're kind of hoping for that. And then when it changes, you're like, oh, okay, that's different. You're like, no, wait, this is actually better because it sets the precedent for all these fun transitions.
And the way the picture falls, and that's not good enough for them. Like it breaks perfectly into four. They're like, no, break it more. There needs to be more symbolism of this.
With a hammer with a very long handle.
Yeah.
And I guess originally Maggie was in that picture, but they took her out because I guess you can't smash a baby's face with a hammer.
I think they give Lisa like an extra like crack with the hammer. Like everyone gets 4, and I think she gets 5.
And I think it's supposed to be look like the Meet of the Beatles cover to that. Yeah, there's so many things packed in here, like the fake magazine covers. Though they don't look accurate to me of early Simpsons Success magazine covers because the majority of them were just Bart. They didn't want the whole family. Though the first Simpsons TV guide cover was the whole family, but most of them I think of like the not particularly well drawn Bart that's on the cover of Rolling Stone the first time, where he's like surprised. He's like, "Whoa, I'm getting a photo taken."
And
just
then
giving the people what they want. Bart by the barrelful.
And then they do just the regular music for Behind the Music, and I was like, is this a parody? Because this is really bad. Yeah. And then I went to another episode of this actual show. I was like, no, that's the actual music. It's like a regular guitar riff while a synthesizer is having a sneezing fit in the background.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
I love it. It's terrible, but I love it. Blam, blam, blam. Oh God. Also, I caught in the Times Square version.
Me too.
Like, yeah, Sorny brand back. I'm so glad that said Sorny.
There's also a Panaphonics sign.
I missed that. That's
and then
awesome.
coming in from the top of the screen is BOX. I want to believe it said Magnet Box.
I want to too.
Yes.
Oh, God. And Marge vacuuming is the first of the many like in-universe real clips of the show that are just so great that it's like, what were the jokes? Well, Marge vacuums, Homer gets a lobster on his nose. Like, it looks like a terrible show in the show.
I think it is also like a lot of these people outside of George Meyer looking back at the first season and saying, why did anybody like this? It wasn't very good.
I think they are being extra all this season we've mentioned like, oh, they're really feeling the history of the series. And I think it really was writing season 11 during season 10, where also they did the 200th episode right before that. And all of that was like so much press. They like the Fox PR machine was really getting behind a decade of The Simpsons, 200 episodes. And so if you're Mike Scully and all the other writers who are doing all these reflective interviews in the year 1999, 98, you're thinking about like, let's put this to bed, or let's rest on our laurels and think about this.
I just love that whenever you see a clip of The Simpsons within this show, it's always like Marge vacuuming, Bart skateboarding, or Bart going cowabunga. Just like it's the lamest shit possible. But the audience is like can't get enough of it.
Rewatching some behind the musics before this was really helpful too, because the lines they're giving Jim Forbes are not even that much crazier than the ridiculous metaphors he has to say. The way he says, the way in the Guns N' Roses one, he's like, and the guns were loaded, but were they going to turn them on themselves?
Oh wow, that's great.
And all the cuts to like B-roll or like footage that I don't mean literal bees, but like all the it reminds me too, and it's something Mr. Show I think got even better, which is that like the behind the music producers only have access to so many photographs and publicity stills or footage of the people they're talking about. And so they have to show the same thing over and over again, but from different angles. And the Mr. Show one was my favorite of that because they had the one piece of footage of the Corey Feldman guy dancing at a music premiere, and they played it 4 times in a row.
With like different effects on it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, we get the opening and behind the music. That's where the clip show feel was really coming in, of seeing all the different scenes from previous episodes. And and also Marge's thing of like, they told us how to dress, like that is almost every behind the music had somebody going like, and these managers, they were just too controlling. So yes, the clip packages are done, and we get a setup of this weird universe that this episode exists in, where Springfield is real and all the people in it are real, but Homer and other people write scripts that they then do and film, and those are episodes.
And people in town play themselves.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying under my breath, that makes no sense.
Yes.
Yeah, the reality, like, that was a challenge for them. Like, what is this reality? If we do it behind the scenes, like, it's not just that they're actors, but Springfield is also real, and all the people actually exist within the town.
Yeah, like, it's really funny that like they poke fun later on, like, later seasons of The Simpsons degraded with nonsensical plots, whereas like the plot in this episode is super nonsensical.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, there's we get some quick clips of the family. I like seeing Marge save her babies and then just giving up on the third one. It's like, who cares? Third one. And then her saying they almost drove me to fortified wine. Like, that mouth movements are way off. That's definitely ADR. And also that's the same thing Troy McClure drinks.
Delicious fortified wine.
And yes, then Homer talks about how much he loves television. They're all loving TV.
On this unassuming street, 2 nobodies named Homer and Marge Simpson settled down to raise a family. First came baby Bart. Then Lisa Simpson. And finally, Maggie.
Nobody told us how tough it is to raise kids. They almost drove me to fortified wine.
Then we figured out we could park them in front of the TV. That's how I was raised, and I turned out TV.
I'd see him sitting on that couch all day long, just staring at that Hollywood hogwash.
Our favorite show was Hollywood Hogwash, but we also loved the Drek Squad.
The Malarkeys, dumbing it down.
Sheriff Lowbrow, Home Improvement.
But we never saw people like us on TV.
TV families were always hugging and tackling issues.
Homer kept saying he could do a more realistic family show. Finally, I said, so do it. Either or get off the pot.
And he did.
Oh, God. I mean, that cut to Bart saying Home Improvement every time just makes me laugh.
I was gonna say, up until this point, like I was, giving out sensible chortles at the gags, but Hollywood Hogwash like was my first big guffaw of like, oh, that's too, I don't know why that's so funny. Just
you think it's
every bit of that is the way that Ned says it. Then of course the obvious gag, but then when you just start thinking about it a little bit more about what Hollywood Hogwash the show would actually be, it's a dynamite joke to me.
I love the slam at Home Improvement because you feel like these writers are still bitter for just being dominated by Home Improvement in the ratings, where like we have to remind people Simpsons was enough of a hit to stay on Fox, but Home Improvement was like number 1. Mm-hmm. Simpsons is like number 30 in its prime.
Yeah, well,
after like the first season.
Not to mention you've got the co-creator of The Critic, which got partnered with Home Improvement and immediately unpartnered from it because it failed. I also love when Ned presents the idea of Hollywood hogwash, the shot of the family just slack-jawed staring at television. And I definitely think of that, and I turned out TV. I think of that line many times in my life.
We did turn out TV.
And yeah, Bart, the way Bart is presenting how the characters, like, nobody on TV was like us, that's literally how the show was pitched in 89 and in 90. They're just saying the write-ups about it. I think on the commentary, too, when they bleep Marge, the writers are like, they were tempted to just have Marge say way more swears because they can bleep whatever in this and it doesn't break reality of the show. So Homer writes, "My funny family," which I guess the shtick with this is that it's sort of about how weird the shorts are and how they don't seem... I mean, it's not really a joke about the shorts. I guess it's just that Homer's a bad writer.
It just feels like they're making fun of 50s sitcom tropes. But this is my least favorite part of the episode because it's just like, I wish they were just making fun of themselves more.
Yeah, it should just be them reenacting the original shorts or like looking weird and or Homer talking very slowly and they're like, "Why do you talk like that, Dad?" Though I do like that Homer is like putting too much soap in there and Lisa does what she always does, like, "Hey, that's too much soap," like ruins the scene, ruins a joke, while Maggie does a great job of acting and doing the Mamma Mia face.
And you think this is where Homer...
That's why I like this scene, just because Maggie's doing the Mamma Mia look without saying Mamma Mia. I think this scene could have done with like 3 or 4 more Mamma Mias.
I wish there was something from the narrator like, "And Homer found his famous catchphrase," because I feel like they're trying to say like, "Oh yeah, Homer does say Mamma Mia, right? That's his thing he does."
Just accept, that would be great for the rest of the episode. Anytime Doe would have been said in a clip you saw, Homer says Mamma Mia.
But we were well into the Mamma Mia era of Mario, so...
Oh, yes, yeah. I like that Homer casts everyone as themselves except for Bart, who he makes his boss in that. That's funny to me. And I like that Lisa goes like, it's amazing how fast Dad betrayed his vision, like, instantly. That's when there's the great line of Homer saying he was thinking of firing Marge every single day. It's an easy editing trick, but it always got me in Behind the Musics where somebody was like Slash or Axel. Slash would say about Axel, like, "Oh man, he drove me crazy," and then you show an old clip of Axel going like, "I think the band's working really well together." Like, that's something I learned too in those Behind the Musics, that even if you are still mad at everybody, you have to agree to do it too, or else it'll just be your bandmate bad-mouthing you and you get none of the say. Like, that was in the Guns N' Roses one where it's like, well, I guess Slash is right, Axel's just an asshole, no other stories about it. They then take the pitch to Hollywood. There's a pretty good joke of Homer driving seemingly towards Hollywood and then finding out he was driving 400 miles away from Hollywood. And then it's really weird when they list all the places he took it to see the ABC and NBC logo on the show. Like, that, it's strange to see.
That.
And Telemundo.
Oh yes, yeah. And then there's another just great joke about the locking gates with the guard's neck. The neck is making the noise of a slamming gate. I love that. And Marge then is able to pitch the show to Fox because her hairdresser is the president of Fox, which...
Is that a reference to John Peters, the famous hairdresser who became like a producer?
I bet you're right. I think... I just took it as a general like diss on Fox being a low-rent network at the time. But yeah, I bet you're right. It's an official joke about that. But I mean, yeah, it does speak to the real truth that Fox was a small enough network that it would really give just 13 episodes to an animated series in 1989. Like, nobody done that before. Though I guess it would make more sense if you showed the Mr. Moneybags version of Jim Brooks there doing it. But
we get a nice Rupert Murdoch slam, though, at least.
Those make me so wistful. We're like 3 years removed from the Rupert Murdoch era of Fox now.
There's like 9 more evil billionaires to worry about. So
he's so old now too.
I thought he died. Is he not dead?
No, but his career is.
No.
I mean, we are 2 months away from this episode airing. I won't play the anti-death jingle because he's a monster.
I'm saving it for somebody else in this, so I don't want to play it. But yes, it's he's 89 years young at the moment that we're recording this. Will he make it to 90? We shall see.
I bet he'll have another wife.
You think
before
so?
this all ends.
I can squeeze one in there before I die.
His wife only 35 years younger, so good for her.
Oh, wow. That's relatively old for a billionaire wife. Yeah. But yeah, so they signed the deal, and there's a great gag about the Hysteria Ward going crazy for Bart skateboarding, and just the women hosed down is so funny. And obviously, it's not the Beatles version of Twist and Shout. I couldn't see what it was. My gut tells me it's NRBQ.
I thought that too, but it turns out they never covered it officially, like on a release.
Okay. Though Mike Scully, one phone call, he can get them to cover Twist and Shout, just original for The Simpsons.
You guys need beer money? Come on down.
They're so lucky that the Beatles covered a song like Twist and Shout, and everybody knows it as a Beatles song, but you can just pay for the Twist and Shout from the not Beatles people, do a Beatles reference without spending the millions of dollars to use a Beatles song. And it did make me laugh that like Bart a decade later is referencing the T-shirts that kids wore to school of him.
Yes, and all of the comma man sayings.
Yeah.
When I think when we did Bart Gets Famous, Bart of Darkness maybe didn't have his Instagram yet, or maybe wasn't as public with his collection, because I remember seeing it much later and then noticing like, oh, Bart does say man a lot. Like any product is just like, it's not toxic, man. Like, and then later on, like maybe a year ago, that guy on Twitter, the guy who posts all the Secret Simpsons stuff, he was showing like, oh, I got the Simpsons, like, here's how you promote the show kind of package from Fox. And in the rules, it says Bart Simpson does not say man, he says dudes. So I think they were tired of all the marketing saying blah, 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 man.
Oh, that's great.
So
I love that.
After like 1994, I think it was like, no, Bart says dudes. It's all inclusive.
Oh, I didn't even think of it as like a woke choice there. That's funny.
I don't think it is. He would say y'all now.
Accidentally woke.
Yeah. Now that, all of those man shirts, I can see by 1994 when they make that guy, I appreciate him very much for spending whatever money it costs to get that like official syndicator packet of rules and ads and stuff.
And there's like, I like how there's an anti-choice Bart Simpson shirt.
That's great.
Officially licensed.
That all the rest are him just stealing somebody else's catchphase. Like
you bet your sweet Bippy.
That's great, comma man. That Life Begins at Conception one. That's fun. If I could ironically wear that while also wearing like a Planned Parenthood hat to make it clear this is ironic, I would consider wearing that shirt.
I posted two clever tweets during the first presidential debate this year where Biden's "Shut up, man" that became a T-shirt. So I posted that alongside of the guy holding up the "Hi, man" T-shirt. And you know what? The Joe Biden shirt was also $30.
What a ripoff!
Exactly.
And then Lisa has a cute little line about getting invited to so many birthday parties she'd have to read the cake to know who she was singing to. That sounds like the kid version of the bits in most Behind the Musics where they just brag like, I had sex with so many women I didn't even know who I was waking up to or whatever. Also, I didn't know bumptious was a real word. I did not. I had to Google that one. But the bumptious.
What does bumptious mean?
Rocky?
Yes, yeah. But that sounds like a real these Harvard guys showing off their Harvard knowledge. Also in this first act here, we get to see how a hilarious running gag was born.
I first knew the show was a hit when I walked into school and a kid was wearing a Bart Simpson t-shirt. Fox had an endless supply of clever slogans, man. Suddenly I was invited to every birthday party. Sometimes I'd have to read the cake just to know who I was singing to.
The Simpsons was a smash. Viewers couldn't get enough of the show's fractured take on the modern family.
The funniest stuff came right out of real life.
Son, let's go out for frosty chocolate milkshakes.
Cowabunga, dude!
And cut.
Dad, I've never said cowabunga in my life. Your script sucks.
You little... Hey, that's funny. And that horrible act of child abuse became one of our most beloved running gags.
I think that moment is where it hit me of like,
Me too.
I guess it is fucked up that it's strangling Bart has been in the show for a decade.
It also,
For whatever reason, the crew that are watching it transpire. Like, it's not like someone watching on TV go, oh, it's fake. It's the crew really there watching this act of child abuse take place. Hey, that's funny.
I like how they underline it as child abuse, and then they cut to like the assembly line of all the Homer strangling Bart figures.
Yeah.
But I honestly feel like somebody on the staff was really mad that there was this idea that Bart said cowabunga, because like on a season 2 commentary, they are all shocked to hear Bart actually say it. But he actually says it in a season 1 episode. The Telltale Head is the first time he goes cowabunga when he's skateboarding.
In a very straightforward way. It's just like, oh, well, Bart is... That moment feels like... Well, Telltale Head is so recut and so ADR'd that I think they're just like, what? This scene of Bart skateboarding is kind of boring. What do we goose it with? Well, you just have him say cowabunga. But him saying cowabunga also is like... It just felt like they knew that the Ninja Turtles said that, so Bart would say
Yeah,
it.
he just copies what he sees on TV.
Yeah. They definitely were very defensive on a lot of those commentaries of like, they put it on all of the T-shirts, but Bart never said cowabunga, and that's why they would, in jokes, like in Summer of 4 Foot 2, they joke that Bart hasn't said those kind of things in years, but he did unironically say it at a certain point.
And then like, cowabunga, that's the spirit.
Yeah. And Homer saying his old frosty chocolate milkshakes there is pretty great. And then when they talk about the Simpsons getting so rich, that them rolling around in money is a top gif. I love that gif.
Yeah.
This killed me because I remembered what was coming up. It's like, oh, it's the 2 pets also swimming in the money. But I completely forgot about the goldfish gasping for air on top of the money. Like I laughed really hard when I saw that again.
All the pets are rolling in dough.
You're right. I think that goldfish has left out a lot of the gifs. I forgot about that too. And also, I just love the idea of regular toilet paper becoming dog toilet paper. It's just so...
just the idea that dog toilet paper exists.
Yes. Obviously, they must have hired someone to use the dog toilet paper on the dog instead of... I don't think Marge is using it. And this is also where I learned that you use toast points to eat caviar. I'd certainly never... I think I've probably had caviar once after this. And to me, in my low-rent palate, I just saw it as like salty goo. But I think also too they said they had a real conversation about like, well, wait, does Lisa eat caviar because she's a vegan or vegetarian, and they said like, well, this is a flashback, so it's before she's a vegetarian.
I think she would maybe still eat eggs. I don't know.
She said she ate cheese, which disgusted Apu, but I think she'd still eat eggs. I think she's an egg-eating vegetarian. And then we get jokes about MC Hammer's house, which that was the major takeaway from the first band behind the music with him.
Just the insane hubris of like, I bought a house up on the hills so the poor could look up at me and aspire. And this was happening in Oakland, right?
Yeah, actually in Fremont, in the Fremont area. I looked it up, Bob. If you want to take a hour-long trip, we can go check it out for ourselves. It still stands. It got bought by somebody else 23 years ago, and I think it has 2 other owners since. But at least based on Google Maps photographs I saw, the MC Hammer house still exists in Fremont, California.
I like how it's like, well, the Simpsons are moving to California, so the house is helicoptered in.
That's great. Yeah. And that it did say Hammer Time on the gate, and Homer smashing it into Homer Time is pretty funny.
That rules.
And I mean, that also is in the Mr. Show sketch too. They talk about buying a house on a hill above the poor people so they can look at them. But I get it from MC Hammer's perspective. If you watch his special, like, he is, a very religious guy who also talks about his how hard he worked and how he wants to inspire people. I don't think that's like fake, but I do think he misunderstood the hubris of having that kind of mansion above all the poor people in Fremont.
It's pretty misguided. It's like he deserved to fail.
It's why everybody remembers it. Like, honestly.
But best rap about the Addams Family to date, I think. I haven't seen the new one, so I'm not sure if there's a better rap in that, but I would say there probably isn't.
There was another clip in the Behind the Music with Hammer that made me like him a little more, which is it's a clip from him talking about his money problems on Oprah in like 96 or 97. And she asks, like, so when you say broke, what do you mean? He's like, look, he makes sure to say there's real people who are really broke. I am not really broke, but I have a lot of taxes I need to pay and I got to sell my house. But please don't worry about me like you'd worry about actual people with real problems. So I liked that. I at least like seeing that. They don't do as many jokes in here about what really seemed to cost MC Hammer a lot of money, which is he befriended way too many people and was too nice to a giant entourage of people that just like ate all his money.
You have to decide how big your posse is going to be before you become rich.
Yeah.
You have to establish that early on.
You got to keep it on a lockdown, man. Then the Simpsons, how big are they getting? Well, they've got their own album.
Yeah, I've seen all the overnight sensations. Brad Hall, Rich Little, Little Richard. But the Simpsons blew them all away. They even had a hit record. Meanwhile, Crustafina sits on the shelf.
None of us had ever sung before, but Mr. Geffen believed in us.
We're gonna groove tonight. We'll make you feel alright. Simpsons Boogie.
Simpsons Boogie, Lovely to Love Your Lovin', and Simpsons Christmas Boogie went mega platinum and swept the Grammys.
Right, and the award for Best Hardcore Thrash Metal goes to Simpsons Christmas Boogie.
Simpsons Christmas Boogie.
For America's favorite family, everything was coming up roses, but those roses contained ready-to-sting bees. When we come back,
I want to set the record straight. I thought the cop was a prostitute.
That was before Ozzy Osbourne redefined himself as a stumbling man with dementia, screaming his wife's name.
That's right.
Because I know, what he looked like, back in the day, but like my only thoughts, like, yeah, he has long brown hair that's like very straight and wears his little glasses. So when I saw this guy pop up, I was like, that's not Ozzy Osbourne. And I was like, oh wait, it probably was circa when they were animating this. Maybe
I think that bat thing is also from Behind the Music because he's like, I didn't know it was a real bat.
Yes,
I just bit his head off.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I think that's supposed to look like 80s Ozzy. Like, definitely that's the cocaine 80s Ozzy. Yeah, the Osbournes wouldn't premiere until 2 years after this, but
I have one thing though.
Yes.
Like, so they're definitely making fun of how bad the Simpsons albums are.
Yeah, well, I'm bringing up Mr. Geffen, David Geffen by name, who did release the Simpsons album. Yeah,
and it was his idea. Like, I'm going to make them stars, music stars. According to Matt Selman, at the end of this episode, he says that Simpsons Christmas Boogie was based on the BTO version of Taking Care of Business called Taking Care of Christmas. And I would like you to play this up until the refrain here, Henry, because it is so low effort.
Oh, God. Okay.
It's that time of year again to get some paper and a pen and write your Christmas letter to St. Nick. Send it to the North Pole, to his workshop in the snow, and he'll put his elves to working on it quick. Tell Santa you've been good and done the things you should, and you're waiting for his visit Christmas Eve. If you're in bed by 9, you will give him lots of time to put some special toys under your tree, and he'll be taking care of Christmas every day. Taking care of Christmas in his sleigh.
There you go. All right.
Taking care of Christmas and doing it right. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Boo. All right. It's enough. And I think it's like everybody wants to write a Christmas song because you want to get a hit Christmas song because then it's played every year for like 40 years.
Yeah, you get millions of dollars every, like, that is your forever money there. If you can score the next standard, that's it. But that is so
Mariah
lazy.
Carey's going to be famous in 1,000 years.
Yeah, she'll be just that Christmas person, Mariah Carey, Saints Mariah Carey, the Christmas creator.
But yeah, just a very lame variant on an already lame song, which is what Simpsons Christmas Boogie is. I'm surprised there was not. I guess Simpsons Sing the Blues came out in the fall of '90, so it could have been like a Christmas gift.
Oh, it was the Christmas release for sure. Yeah, I think if you didn't get it on launch day, you got it as a Christmas gift for sure. That was we talked about it on that podcast just a few months ago, but yeah, it was a huge push to get that done in time for Christmas. Also because Geffen Records, they had a contract ending with Warner, and Warner was like, we want to release this, get it out by Christmas. But man, that BTO, who they were guests on The Simpsons just a few episodes ago, that Taking Care of Christmas is so lazy.
It sucks. And they're not even trying. It's like, taking care of Christmas. It's just like so flat.
I especially like that seemingly they're saying that Santa Claus is taking care of Christmas. But then they say every day, which is like, no, that's the point. It's not every day.
It's just one day.
God,
and a lot of it's done via magic.
Yeah. He is not working overtime either, I don't think. The elves are, but not him.
This song has many flaws.
And yeah, you're right. Also, like, Bachman doesn't sound like he could even get too up for it. He's like, and working overtime. Like, he doesn't care.
This is a hungover recording.
And Crustaphenia, that's a reference to The Who's 1973 album Quadrophenia. I feel like this podcast is just going to be explaining references, but the Ozzy one, not only the biting off the head, but the anger at this Grammy Award is a reference to the 1989 Grammy Awards.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because 1989 was when they introduced their first ever heavy metal category. Because, through the 80s, a lot of music guys were like, God, the Grammys are so stuffy. They never give it to young guys like Metallica. And so they'd never win the rock section. So they created the heavy metal one, pretty much so Metallica or other bands could win. And so Metallica was nominated. Everybody is sure they're going to win. Metallica is certain about it. The first presenters include Alice Cooper, and he reads that the winner is Jethro Tull.
Oh, you're right.
And Metallica, to this day, is furious at Jethro Tull for beating him. Even Jethro Tull in interviews, the people in it were like, we don't know. We didn't want to win it. And so it turned the Grammys. That's one of the many reasons the Grammys are a joke. But it was Alice Cooper presenting it, not Ozzy Osbourne.
You say that now, but wait until there's a podcasting category.
We'll probably lose to NPR every year.
Some Earwolf thing.
I also love that rose analogy that he could just say those roses had thorns, but instead they contained ready to sting bees.
I noticed that as the show increases, they get crazier and crazier. So like the metaphors start off pretty basic and hacky, but then they get more and more tortured. Like soon we're gonna have fire hoses of respect, but then they get even more crazy after that. I like how they just gently amp it up.
Yeah. And also Homer's thing is it is a parody of many of the behind the musics where the rocker goes like, tries to explain away why they got arrested with a sex worker for some reason. But Homer, just straightforward. He thought the cop was a prostitute. The end. When they come back from the commercial break, we get more funny graphics of sex, fame, Millhouse. Then we come back to show that it's an international hit. And I do think, the British, I've said it many times, they love The Simpsons. So seeing the Queen herself watching it,
spitting out
great.
her TV dinner.
And then it's a lobster pinching Homer's nose that makes her laugh extra. It's great. And also the fire hose of respect that's just a funny line, in that it's a fire hose of cheerleaders shooting Homer into the air. And so, the Simpsons are so big, even Santa and the Pope get ignored. But as all behind the musics do, the second act is where you start to show the cracks forming. And that's what happens in this next clip.
Oh, Homer was spending money like a teenage Arab. He bought me a Rolex and cashmere jeans. I felt kind of guilty because I was always trying to score with his wife. So when did we start filming? Oh.
Even Bart was throwing dough around. He paid me and Carl $1,000 to kiss each other.
Hey, did we ever get that money?
But reckless spending and interracial homoeroticism were just volume 1 of the Encyclopedia Self-Destructica.
Great. That's great. That's why I led with that.
Yeah, the encyclopedia closing is good enough, but it has to explode too. That's and also seeing the words interracial homoeroticism on the page is so great. I like to, this is the scene where in the MC Hammer one, it's his barber. Like, that's the weirdest thing. Like, one of the talking heads used a lot is his barber, who's like, I was his closest friend, his longtime barber, lived in Oakland. And he's just saying, he spent money on this, he spent money on this. He should have known the trouble was coming.
And that's Moe's role here, right?
Yes, yeah. And Lenny and Carl, this is not the last time they will make jokes about them being sexually attracted to one another.
It feels like the first time.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. Usually they are commenting on how a woman is hot together, which is the opposite of kissing each other for money. And then not only do they show the encyclopedia exploding, but then they have to give you a Jack in the Box of Scare too, like after that. with the month of April on a calendar popping out of it. That is hilarious. It doesn't even matter that it's like this thing happened in April, but it's like it happened in April. Yeah. And so we then see the gorge joke, the classic Homer gorge fall from a whole nother angle, as Bart he was apparently in the kayfabe of this. Bart was supposed to do the fall in the script, but he was too tired from making people kiss all night. and so Homer took the fall. And this gorge fall was definitely one of the funniest earlier moments, but I think so many things have eclipsed it that, especially by this point in time, that it's weird that they would go back to it. I feel like there have been funnier things, but I think internally they're still in love with this. And Al Jean's there, of course, and George Meyer is there, so they're still remembering this as like the funniest thing they did in those early years.
It sets a precedent for all like the physical abuse Homer, like, because if you think about like every time he did something dangerous or stupid, like it sets up the rest of the jokes, like oh, this is when his crotch kept getting hit by hills on the snow ski slope or everything else. So I think like you have to have that in there if you're gonna have like a little 2-minute bit about all the punishment he endured. So yeah, I think on the first clip show, the April Fool's one, they mentioned that like this was in every clip package they do, like every clip on TV they'd show it, which is crazy too, because like the whole point of that joke is, what if a character took a Wile E. Coyote fall, but they had realistic damage? Yeah, and maybe the bloodiest we've seen Homer, like most realistically hurt. So extreme. Yeah, it's our, like as a kid at 9 when this was on my tape, I would fast forward through the scene or look away because the damage to Homer was too grisly for my little 9-year-old eyes. So I have some shocking facts about this. This is the second time they have reanimated parts of this scene. So if you remember, in the original clip show, so it's come to this, season 4, they add an extra scene of Homer, what you actually see what happens to him after he falls out of the ambulance. In the original episode, you don't. The kids are looking down and you hear him. But in the clip show, they add a scene of him falling down the cliff again while bandaged. In this one, for whatever reason, they reanimate the original falling down the cliff animation because it looks newer. Not only that, but the big telling evidence is in the original clip from season 2, you can see the blue sky behind Homer, and in this one, it's brown. But I do think that they reused the same drawings to make this, but I don't know why they reanimated it. They were using clips in this episode. I have no idea why, but it looks like they were using the same like layouts or whatever. I think it's traced over. Maybe it was that in that shot it is angled at a different angle. Yes, that too. So maybe they're like, well, wait, we don't have lines here for this angle, so maybe just trace it and redo it. But it is strange that they've reanimated it 3 times or twice now. Then Homer gets a pain pill addiction, which is meant to be a reference to Jerry Lewis and Chevy Chase, like comedians who took pratfalls and then found out that like, oh, my back actually hurts in a lot. But every Behind the Music has the addiction bit. Like, that's why I'm glad I watched the Guns N' Roses one, because that one literally is like
every person in it is an addict. Like every single person.
I'm gonna say, for some reason, Homer got addicted to painkillers while showing you the visuals of like 1,000 pills landing perfectly in his mouth. It's just such a good marriage between a visual and an audio gag.
And this is when opioid addictions were just for celebrities. Now they're for everybody.
Yeah. Oh God. Homer was a trailblazer. Yeah. I also like that they for a lot of the montage of Homer's injuries, it's a lot of Scully episode stuff, because I think Homer took a lot of beatings in other seasons too, but I think the cartoonish violence really went up from season 9 forward. I think, especially because Bill and Josh, I think, were trying to tamp it down in their season.
And I think Merkin liked realistic violence, like realistic and painful, not cartoony.
Well, though, in his seasons, they did do the one where Homer's, which is in the clip show of him holding the wrecking ball and getting crushed between the wrecking ball and the house. And Homer's great line, like, what was even more like a drug was the drugs. And then we get a cute little American Beauty reference just to mark that this was written in 99.
So fresh at this point in time.
Black and white footage of a floating paper bag, which was everywhere. And then we get a joke about the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Me and Bob, we've walked that Walk of Fame, though we didn't look at Mac Rainings, I don't think.
It's filthy. Don't go there.
Yeah, no, don't ever. I don't think, Matt, have you ever visited Hollywood?
Yeah, no, I once, never again after the first time that I was on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I forgot what celebrities, stars we saw, but I did like a fan meetup around that time. There was like I'm not sure if it was a Dave and Buster's, but it was something. So just like 5 minutes out on there, I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. That's fine. It's just one of those mystical kid things, like, you know, growing up watching The Simpsons and other stuff. You're like, wow, the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but it's like, it's not in the, you know, it covers a lot of not great areas too. So
well, and
there's probably also like an armed militia around Donald Trump's star.
Oh yes, yeah,
probably.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you're also surrounded by other. For me, when I first visited LA and got to see the Walk of Fame, I was surrounded by other goofball tourists who were like gawking at it, and I was like, oh, I feel I can't act like them. I feel like I'm better than them, so I can't just gawk at it.
Did you immediately go and put your hands in Marilyn Monroe's handprints?
You know, I've never gone that close to the, I guess now it's the TCL theater, but it was Grauman's then. Also, I was shocked to see that it took Matt Groening until 2012 to get his own Walk of Fame star, which was done to commemorate. They did it around the 500th episode. That was the marking time. But the honeybee of Cheerios still doesn't have his own Walk of his own star.
Is he still getting play like on boxes and TV and whatnot?
You know, I don't see it on the boxes, but
he's still there. He's not on for all those Cheerio spinoffs. Like, it's always Honey Nut that he's there. Is there any cereal mascot that has the Hollywood? Like, if it's not the Honey Nut Cheerios, Captain Crunch, maybe? I kind of doubt it.
I mean, I'd put Tony the Tiger as the most famous. I think he's
not the Trix Rabbit.
I don't see that. Yeah, I guess, you know, people have the most passion for Count Chocula, but he only got to work 1 month a year, you know. I appreciate more the honeybees or the Tony the Tiger who puts in the work all the time. Well, I also know that Tony the Tiger is still very active in the commercials, because when I put on that Cartoon Network app to watch like Craig of the Creek, I have to see the same like Tony bring out the tiger commercial for Frosted Flakes.
I'm reading here that in 2011 Honey Nut Cheerios was the best-selling cereal in the United States, and I have to ask, what's wrong with people?
What the hell?
Maybe like babies eat it.
It's because it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's not offensive. It's not like weird. It's completely normal. So I can imagine that, yes, it would be the best-selling one by that regard. You know what I mean?
I also think 90% of a baby's diet is just a baggie of Cheerios.
That too, yeah.
So,
and maybe with Honey Nut, you don't feel as like sugar guilty as an adult if you're like, oh, I can't eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch anymore. It's too unhealthy for my adult body. But
a bee kissed every one of these O's with its sweet mouth,
with its ready to sting stinger. Just as a little segue into Honey Nut Cheerios, there's like this like new type of Cheerios. It's called like not Harvest Crunch, but it's my favorite all-time cereal.
Whoa.
And it's just it's super, super amazing. If I could just look it up in a second, but like I just really need to pip this cereal because Oat Crunch. Cheerios Oat Crunch. There's two flavors, which is oats and honey, and one which is a cinnamon, and it's amazing. It's it's hard to describe, but it's a lot of added oats to the cereal, and it's not too sweet. It's very, very crunchy. It's just, I had this and I was like, I could literally have this cereal for the rest of my life. Sadly, it's not readily available in Canada like it is in some spots. But yeah, just want to give Cheerios Oat Crunch a shout out.
Use the promo code McMuscles at checkout.
I wish. Get on the phone. Someone get on the phone with General Mills for me, please.
I appreciate your views on this, Matt, because I know I've seen your tier lists for cereals, and I agree with them. I think at least 80%. I agree. So
yeah, like I see people put like Raisin Bran, and I'm like, are you 80? Raisin Bran is S tier, and it's like tournament level Street Fighter players, and they're like, oh, there's no debating this. I'm like, yes, there is.
Raisins alone, like, yeah, hey, and look, I like Raisin Bran fine, but it turns into like a gloop. That's the thing. It mushes too much.
You gotta eat fast.
Well, then you can't savor the raisins. But all right. Anyway, enough cereal talk. It then cuts to Skinner. I feel like you can tell the age of a Simpsons fan if they're going to bring up money stuff, if they say Skinner's Pickle Man line instead of the finger thing.
Pickle Man, yeah.
Doesn't pay the Pickle Man. Basically the same posing as the finger thing means the taxes. But I think if someone's a younger Simpsons fan, they'll use that reference over the finger thing means the taxes. But yeah, Lisa talking about how they were, we were making all this money, but I was like, always strapped for cash. Though that was why I love the TLC one, because it was so eye-opening to me that they talk about, like, I never realized until then how much money the record company takes, because in it they say, like, people say, you guys sold 10 million albums. How did you not have money? And they're like, well, we got 10 cents off of each album, and then we paid taxes on it. And I was like, wait, people pay $10 or $20 for those CDs. You get 10 cents of that? What a scam.
It's such a shame the Napster destroyed the music industry.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. But yes, where did the money go?
Why did I take such punishment? Let's just say that fame was like a drug. But what was even more like a drug was the drugs.
But despite their mounting problems, the Simpsons star continued to rise, like a plastic bag caught in an updraft.
It was such an honor to be on the Walk of Fame. I mean, there we were with Hollywood royalty like Milton Berle and Nelson Mandela.
And just a few stars down from the Cheerios Honeybee.
Awards and honors are great, but they don't pay the Pickle Man.
We were earning millions, but we were always strapped for cash.
One time, Lisa bought a first edition of Susan B. Anthony Man. Her check bounced higher than Rubber Girl.
Where did the money go? Marge lost much of the family fortune investing in birth control products.
I learned something. When people reach for their diaphragm, they don't want to see my picture.
I love the finger, yeah.
That's so great that Marge not only is selling diaphragms, but also ones that judge women for using it, because were you to use it, you're having sex, and Marge is judging you for that. Like, hey,
gentle
I
nagging.
love Comic Book Guy's nameplate just says Comic Book Guy twice.
Oh, that is great.
That's my name. That's my job.
And you can catch in the background, they drew in an Iron Giant figure.
Oh, cool. I missed that.
Yeah, it was shout out to Brad Bird's movie, which had premiered the November before this episode aired. That was November 99. This was May 2000. So a shout out from, they lost a lot of, I said it a lot in our Iron Giant podcast we did, but a part of the brain drain or the talent loss for the animators was when Brad Bird left to do Iron Giant, he took like a handful of the best dudes working on Simpsons and was like, no, your animator's on Iron Giant. You're coming with me. But I like that Mark Kirkland had a little wink towards his old buddies there. Yeah, and most behind the music's the where did the money go answer is like they invested in a restaurant, or they wanted to do a music, or they had insane music videos that spent too much money. Like in the Guns N' Roses ones, it's like Axl Rose wanted to be the star of movies, so they spent like $5 million on November Rain. Then they show just like literal posters that were sold of The Simpsons.
Yeah, the classic then like every character poster from like 1996 or 97 with the yellow background, everyone crammed together.
I love that poster. Yeah,
I can name everybody in that poster, I think.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite times with my mom at Universal Studios when we went to the Springfield section at the Krusty Burger. They have that sign, but then it's just outlines and numbers. It's like, okay, can you name that number? And my mom would just say like, all right, 127. I'm like, I don't even need to look at the picture. I can just see the outline. Boom, that's who that is. Like I was the king of the dorks that day.
And your mom thought you were cool.
Yes, yeah. She said as much when she photographed me sitting next to the Millhouse standee there. God. She's like, she thought we were both cool that
Your
day.
mom burned you.
But yeah, I do like Wiggum's remarking on the cast as well in this next clip.
As The Simpsons' money dwindled, their expenses soared. From the original group of 5, the cast ballooned to dozens, then hundreds.
I'd never acted before in my life, but if the sea captain could be in the show, why not me? I've even got a catchphrase. Yeah, wah, 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 wah. Now I lost it.
It's like the penguin, I guess.
Yeah, he became Burgess Meredith's penguin there. Yeah. And then we find out, I like that the dramatic reenactment is trying to hide who Apu is, but his accent and it being in the Quickie Mart makes it extremely clear who it is.
And his silhouette, really. You
Yes.
could hide the background and the voice, but the silhouette's still very clearly Apu.
And the owing back taxes thing, it definitely comes out a lot in Behind the Musics. I mean, there's the Willie Nelson one that is all about that. Also, Chuck Berry, they talked about that too. Chuck Berry had a lot of problems. But I do think Simpsons do so many IRS jokes that I think occasionally do come from the fact that these are rich Hollywood producers who are mad they pay taxes. I think a little bit of that. But though, let me say that The Simpsons kind of it gives you it might trick you into thinking that the government goes after the American government through the IRS audits the very rich quite a lot. Not the case. You guys should just look up this ProPublica article about like IRS. Sorry, but it's just easier and cheaper to audit the poor is the name of it, where it's like, yeah, if you're auditing poor people, you send them a letter in the mail and they're so terrified they send you money. Well, meanwhile, if you're going to audit a super rich person who they know every trick in the book, they can afford the accountants who can hide everything. So, and also the IRS has gone through a bunch of budget cuts that they don't have a lot of the prosecutors who, coincidentally, they'd be the one enforcing it on rich people. So that's weird, right? But don't let The Simpsons trick you into that.
Or let's say if you run a leftist organization, you might get audited.
You might get audited quite a lot, yeah. If you're, say, the Democratic Socialists of America, you might get audited every single year, just, accidentally. But I do love the IRS taking everything from Homer, including his nipple rings. The ripping out of nipple rings, that makes this again feel like a very 2000 joke of like, we all remember men could have nipple rings
Just
then.
the very idea. Yeah. At least it was like they came out clean. It wasn't like ripping off his nipples.
Yes. Yeah.
He barely flinches when they come out.
Seeing like Homer drawn with visible nipples is weird, though.
That is true, yeah. And I like how long they hold on him crying. I'm just like, wow, the person filming Homer just like zoomed in on his crying. There's a lot of great jokes in here about like bad editing. Like that I wonder too, again, I want to talk to Mark Kirkland, like, how do you animate bad editing to look correct? Like when they zoom in on the flower, they can animate it better of just showing a bee coming out of it, but instead they cut to just a bee on a red background. That's like how you would film it poorly for bad editing.
I wonder how many stage directions were in the script, just because there's so many visual things happening here.
And then we get a parody of a couch gag filming, which is a real one from season 8's The Homer They Fall, the cowboy jumping away couch gag.
Oh, right. And one thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention it up front, is that this episode was not written like a normal one. There was no like draft that one writer wrote. It was like a collaborative effort.
Yeah,
so there
right.
are 4 writers on this script that were just like kicking an idea, kicking it around for like however long it took to write. So there was not one guy who brought this to the table to rewrite.
You're right. Yeah, it does feel a lot more room written. They really talk up Gamble and Prost, who aren't on the commentary, as huge parts of that. But yeah, you're right. I think that's why too. This is just a collection. This feels much more like a episode long sketch than a normal episode where a person had a draft that then they rewrite. And I do like the joke too that Bart is at the certain level of sitcom level fame that he'll be offered Teen Wolf, which famously, like Michael J. Fox did the first one and hated it, and then the second one they can't get him back, so they get Jason Bateman, who at the time was a sitcom kid actor.
The Hogan family?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. And so the idea that like, well, who would be in Teen Wolf 3? Bart. If Bart was Jason Bateman, he'd be in that. And I also like that Marge tells Homer to poop in his hat when Lisa brings up child labor laws. And I love that Kang and Kodos, they're trying to be professional, but they just can't take it anymore. They're tired of waiting around to film. I love that.
They have ballet tickets.
Not that they'll do any good now. So then comes a joke that I don't like, that I think is
trashing Tom Kite.
Yes, yeah, no, I'm totally cool with the show making fun of itself, like that's cool, but I think it's only fair. You can only make fun of episodes you worked on, and if you make fun of an episode you didn't work on, then you're attacking other people's work.
I would have respected them so much more if they had cut to, so the setup for this is like gimmicky premises and nonsensical plots, and Seymour goes, I am an imposter, and you see the clip from Principal and the Pauper. That is in bad taste. I say don't do that. If they would have cut to Maude Flanders dying, my respect would have like soared through the roof. At this point in time, they knew how hated it was, and they could have immediately reacted to it with that clip.
Totally, 100%. That you just take that out and put that in there, that joke works 10 times better. I mean, definitely in the year 2000, people were calling it, the online fans were saying it was their least favorite. And if you ask like Harry Shearer and Matt Groening on the record, they said that was a bad episode, or I think that episode was a mistake. And poor Bill and Josh and Ken Keeler.
Yeah, they're not there to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they were trying to distract from the fact that they just came off like 3 of the most polarizing episodes ever that spring. And we're just like, well, this is written way in advance, but they could have changed the clip. But I feel like, don't do this, guys. If I was Bill Oakley, I'd be pissed off. And he probably is. Let's ask him.
Yeah, because I obviously laughed at this, but I did not know about the like who wrote what, obviously. So yeah, that is kind of in poor taste. Do you think they could have like maybe not got their blessing, but like say, hey, we're gonna do this gag, or do you think fuck it, let's just do it?
You know, it's possible. It's not like they never talked to each other.
Right.
I could see it being brought up to them, but also, you know, it's I could see them not knowing
doing it right.
From like 1997 until the airing of Maude's death, it was common belief that like, oh yeah, Principal and the Pauper, worst episode ever, to the point where people still believe that. But I know like when I was on the internet, as soon as Maude died, that eclipsed anyone's hatred of Principal and the Pauper, at least within those communities.
Yeah, when you're seeing this in May 2000 and you're reminded of Armin Tamzarian, you're like, I can't believe I was ever mad about this.
Yes.
You guys just killed Maude.
You made me appreciate that more now.
But yes, nonsensical episodes are brought up in this next clip.
With the family in disarray, episodes increasingly resorted to gimmicky premises and nonsensical plots.
I'm an imposter. That man is the real Seymour Skinner.
Trendy guest stars were shamelessly trotted out to grab ratings.
If you are looking for trouble, you found it.
Just try me, you... Oh!
But there were bigger problems off-screen. After judging a Miss Hawaiian Tropic beauty contest at the Sheraton Haleakaloha, Bart created a ruckus on a Hawaiian airline jet, attacking several flight attendants. While he was in rehab, the part of Bart Simpson was played by his good friend, Richie Rich.
Bart, what do you mean you have jury duty?
Don't have a cow, Mother.
Fans reacted to these slapdash episodes with yawns. Angry yawns.
Oh, the angry yawn is like, oh, it's great. I love it.
So I always forget that Bart goes to rehab in this, so that Bart had an extreme drug problem as well.
And like coming out of the plane with his like pants unzipped, some real like lascivious behavior was going on.
Oh, man, yeah. Also, I've said it before, and this will be the last time I say it about season 11 because it's the last one, but like the horniest season. Like Bart's surrounded by those Hawaiian tropic bikini
Oh my
babes.
God, yeah.
Like, this is the most boob-filled season of The Simpsons there ever was. I think they calm it down a little in season 12, but my goodness. That I feel like that joke with him being a judge is that my first thought, that was a joke about David Faustino. That I feel like he's the type of dude who hosted like wet t-shirt contests like the real Bud Bundy. Though I feel like if they'd written this joke like 1 year later, they'd replace Hawaiian Tropic with Girls Gone Wild.
And I think they at least updated their jokes where they're not doing like the, child stars Robert Liquor Store kind of thing.
Yeah,
where they could have easily done that.
Especially with Gary Coleman. They have Gary Coleman references in this episode,
Yeah.
and then to show him. On the commentary, they note that like Gary Coleman was happy to be paid a second time for an appearance on the show. I think, too, Bart's arrest is a reference to Paul McCartney's pot arrest in Japan. I think that happened in 1990. But yes, the Richie Rich drawing, too, another note, they draw his clothes to be green because then it counts as a parody.
Oh, 10% different.
Yeah.
Even though they just call him Richie Rich.
And sadly, that charting of the ratings is kind of accurate to what happened to the show, though I think it never, pretty much it like... If it was going to be super accurate, it would be up super high season 2 and then a slow decline just from then on, and then a sharper decline in like 2000. But yes, then the family heads over to the Iowa State Fair. I really love the poster design on that. Like it's so great.
A state fair is the perfect, like, kind of washed up but semi-respectable place to go for these celebrities.
Well, yeah, and you're around all the hicks in Iowa. Like that's great. And yeah, this bit about the one bad gig that destroys a band, that's in so many of them too. Like the Guns N' Roses one, they're like, and then we were doing a double show with Metallica. James Hetfield got set on fire by a bad pyrotechnic, so we needed to do the full show. But Axl couldn't do the whole show because his voice was screwed up, so he just left, and it just caused a riot. And we knew it was over then, man. That happened in Montreal, by the way. That riot, like it was
I was gonna say, like that led to a ban of any indoor pyrotechnics for wrestling shows, concerts. I'm not sure if it's still in effect, but a lot of people in Montreal dislike Metallica because of it.
Wow, I didn't know that Metallica is blamed for ruining all explosives indoors from then on, man.
Well, it's not their fault, obviously.
No.
But some people are like, "Boo, Metallica, you ruined it for everybody."
Well, if Axl Rose had just heard his voice a little more and sang that night, no one would remember that. I wonder now, once Montreal can finally have anything indoors again, they'll be like, let everything off. Who cares?
Just blow it up.
But yes, the family has a meltdown in Iowa.
Hello, Iowa! Does anyone have a donut?
Now, Homer, this is no time to be thinking about food.
Yeah, forget the donuts. We're here to go nuts. Musically, that is. What kind of song should we play?
Something that swings with the beat of New Orleans.
No, something that rocks. That's the sound of today.
Swings.
Rocks.
Swings.
Rocks.
Sadly, this argument was not part of the act.
I'll kill you.
You don't have the guts, little man.
Folks, we're just having a little family tiff, if you'll just bear with us. Oh, shut up. Always trying to act so mature. I'm glad you make the least money. Oh, that's it.
Hey, stop it.
Stop it.
You get on it.
This actor's arguing over money thing reminds me of the Maude firing and what happened there.
It's fresh in their memories. And Jimmy Carter's comedy breakdancing is great.
Yeah.
On the commentary, these writers talk about, like, we still get checks for these very, very tiny songs, like Simpsons Christmas Boogie and the Jimmy Carter comedy breakdancing song.
Like literally 40 cents.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah. And not, we're recording this October. Hey, we wish a long and healthy life to Jimmy Carter.
I think we need to redefine the anti-death jingle. If you're just mentioned or not actually in the show, you deserve to die. No, I'm not going to say that. But we can't ward away your death. Our powers are only to kill. You must be voicing somebody on the show.
That argument joke is so great because Marge still says it in a presentation like, no, there's something that swings with the beat of New Orleans. But then when you know it's not part of the script, it's like, well, then her saying it that way makes it even funnier.
And you think it's going to go swings, rocks, and then it's going to play up into a song. But no, it's an actual argument where a husband is telling his wife on stage, I'll kill you.
And after the breakdancing, fantastic slow-mo animation of the head exploding, like the fake head falling to the ground and breaking. Really well done.
I had to rewind this joke about 3 times after this. My favorite line of the show, the dream was over. Or was it? Coming up, was the dream really over? Yes, it was. Yeah. Or was it?
No, I've got it here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. I didn't know if you got it, but that's my favorite whole line of this.
The dream was over. Coming up, was the dream really over? Yes, it was. Or was it? And Homer finds a new passion. Dusting and polishing mixing boards. When Behind the Laughter continues.
And that is always, like, everybody you see who just is no longer a musician is a producer now.
Yes,
and that's like the last thing. It's like, he's producing this band you've heard of.
I love at the end of all of those because they're just like, and then band's new thing is this, and you just hear them singing a song that is not that interesting to you, but then they cut to the band going like, and this is the best stuff we've ever done, man. I'm telling you, we're back on top.
Or it's like, I think there was like a Flock of Seagulls one where it's just like, yes, we'll sing I Ran So Far Away. This is our hell that we live in now. And this is all we'll ever do.
We just accept. Yeah, no, the mixing board shot is so perfect, like, because it is, if you get access to the people for the interviews in the show, I think they always were like, no, show that I'm not a loser. I'm still making new music. And here I got my home studio, huh? A guy who doesn't record music couldn't move this knob up and down, could they? Also, that cut to the payphone off the hook, I feel like that was used multiple times in the show, too, in the real show.
Yeah, they said that was a real shot that they were stealing from the original show.
I think it like indicated, but Selena would never answer that phone call or something like that.
And this is the line, where is he? What are they doing? Like the one you just referenced, the one you just played. Sorry, because there's so much to that line that I always stumble through it. But that's the joke that I've used in like What Happened episodes like twice. I'm just like, I'm just using it again. It's too good.
It's so fun. It's just so like you test yourself like how many times can they just say, or was it?
Yes, it was. Or was it? Yeah.
It was all over. But was it all over? Because that is the, when you watch like 5 Behind the Musics in a row, you see the trick. You see that they all tell the same story every time.
And it's like the cheapest act break. Like, it was all over for Guns N' Roses. Or was it? Coming up next, it wasn't over.
Pulling the pieces back together.
Yes, it's just like, there's more show. I understand.
We all know these people aren't dead. You've been talking to them in current day.
Also, it's 9:47. The show ends at 10. Yeah. I know what TV is like.
Another compliment I want to give the animation team is that they followed the rule of Behind the Musics, that you can tell every interview is filmed the same day, so it's always the same place you cut to. So all the Bart ones are on a playground, all the Lisa ones are in front of her desk, all the Marge ones are in the backyard, and all the Homer ones are like on a set.
I think he's in that mixing studio, isn't he?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like the mixing board is right off. Yeah, those are some of my favorites. So like the dude sitting back in his chair next to the mixing board going like, and I just couldn't control them. There was cocaine everywhere. They come back from commercial break, and I like this time in the graphics it says the word graphics. I just like a blink and you miss it kind of thing. And I actually just like straight up love the drawing of the characters in a recording room together. Like it actually feels like the voice actors in character. It's really cute. But yes. The show was on fire. It was actually, I got the clip here.
This is great too.
Fox put the show on hiatus and replaced it with hidden camera footage from the dressing room at Ann Taylor.
That slugfest at the State Fair was really a blessing. It gave us a chance to pursue solo projects. I returned to my first love, the legitimate theater.
As a young female artist, I really love living in this East Village loft. Oh, that must be our new landlord, Mr. Stingley.
Where is the rent? I must have the rent. Dollars, dimes, and nickels, I need them all right now. I literally chewed the scenery.
The other family members were also spreading their creative wings. Bart replaced Lorenzo Lamas in the syndicated action series Renegade.
If Esposito thinks he's gonna muscle us, he's wrong.
I hear that, Renegade.
Let's do this thing.
But yeah, this is the first time I had heard of Rent in the year 2000. Yeah. So I was like, whenever Rent comes up, I think of Homer's song and think that's what the musical is about. Not that it's about AIDS. This is 4 years before the Team America joke.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Wow,
my sister was obsessed with Rent around this time. So like, I was like, hey, look, there's a Rent joke in there for you.
Yeah, the Rent spoke to a certain. I've seen many great videos or testimonials from people who are just like, yes, when I was a teen, I loved Rent, and as I grew up, I realized that this is not how being an adult actually is.
There's a great Lindsay Ellis video on Rent that says everything you need to say about it.
It's perfect. Yeah. No. Also, the essayist David Rakoff, the late essayist, he had a great speech about Rent and how much he hated it. And, but yes, that the idea that the Simpsons version of Rent is that Snidely Whiplash comes in and demands the rent.
Mr. Stingley.
Yeah. And on the commentary, Mark Kirkland shouts out assistant director on the episode, Matthew Fawnin, for animating it. I saw Fawnin in season 18 had become a full-time director and still is one of the full-time directors.
Talked about him in 2035.
But yes, also, I forgot I didn't get the clip in there, but now the wing was on fire and the prayer had been answered by Satan.
And then like fake stock footage of a man in a duffel costume running around.
That's so great. That is such a great extra joke because it's about how behind the music was cheap and could just use public domain footage from like some 1940 silent or 20 silent video of a guy in a Satan costume. I love that.
It looked like it was fake colorized too.
Yes, yeah. There's so many layers to that. This is the kind of like so many extra details and packing in of jokes that a lot of this season was missing, I feel like, and it makes this one stand out, I think, at least in being a perfect parody. I also just love the image of Homer that he saved the scenery that he literally ate and took with him. And he's just staring at it happily. And the show Renegade, I did not watch that either. It apparently went off the air in 1997, which I guess fits for Bart being on the show.
He had a Native American sidekick, but not this black woman sidekick. I think that was the added joke. Where just like, well, there's another minority he works with.
Minority sidekick.
There could have been another sidecar attached to her sidecar, so he's got like 3 people with him.
And meanwhile, Marge is singing it up.
Marge put together a nightclub act.
I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy.
Oh my God.
She didn't do it. She didn't do it.
So the next time you see a sheriff, shoot him. A smile. Good night, Laughlin.
She didn't do it. She didn't do it.
Lisa sang, too, in a tell-all book blasting the family.
To prolong the run of the series, I was secretly given anti-growth hormones.
That's ridiculous. How could I even get all 5 necessary drops into her cereal? What?
I like how Marge cannot carry this on her own, so it's just like just Marge and friends in parentheses. But
good.
I love any joke where an audience reacts in horror to an obvious like kind of cute line setup. Where it reminds me of in the Octopus episode, "This baby's got a fever, dance fever."
Oh, yeah, that one, especially Marge. Her thing of like shoot him, and she's doing a finger gun, and then she pulls back like a smile. And then also like the idea of bastardizing a Bob Marley song, especially, is just so awful. And also the gag of it being Laughlin, like. This is a joke about a Vegas act, but this act isn't too good for Vegas. So the next thing you'd say is like Reno. And I was like, nope, not good enough for Reno or Tahoe either. It's Laughlin level. Like that's how unfamous or how low rent this is. And it is also perfect. Like Lisa would be the one to write the tell-all. And like I think this is the joke of where are my residuals taught me that word as a viewer, which that is technically the main gripe in a lot of those tell-all books from sitcom actors of just like I made less money than other people. Like definitely the residuals complaint. The original Star Trek actors and Gilligan's Island actors, they starred in shows that were not hits at the time and then became giant hits in syndication, and they got no money from it. And it was a problem for them for a very long time.
They didn't go for the parents stealing the kids' money either, Joe.
Yeah.
There are several kids at this point who had like emancipated themselves from their like parasitic parents.
Did you also know that former child star Alyssa Milano, her mom is still her manager?
Oh.
I just found that out recently. Like, wow, really? You can't.
That explains a lot.
That's the opposite of emancipation in that case. But yeah, Lisa, Homer outing himself is pretty great too. I like that. Then we cut to the Thanksgiving dinner. I like that Abe is the one who sets it up, and then you get to see Abe and Maggie awkwardly posed at the kids' table. That's so cute. Though, screw up in this episode, blue-haired lawyer's hair ain't blue.
I don't like it.
Real mess up.
This must be a reenactment.
Yeah, you're right. They couldn't get him. They had to get somebody else. And Gloria Allred, who is that? Well,
a shrill feminist attorney, according to the caption.
According to the show, yes. I mean, definitely that joke is of the 90s era of like, aren't feminists man-haters kind of joke, but she was usually representing a lot of people who sued over sexual harassment and whatnot.
Yeah.
And like in more recent years, she worked with the victims of Bill Cosby and Donald Trump and Harvey Weinstein and Bill O'Reilly. Some criticisms of her says she's more into being famous and as the person representing those people. But I mean, she's going against the bad guys. I don't blame her for that. But they also regret, speaking of bad coloring, they regret not putting her in a red dress, which she normally is in for appearances. The Homer's talking Thanksgiving turkey just makes me sad for not eating one this year.
Be eating your turkey alone.
I'm going to make the same size of turkey and just eat it. Me and my husband just eat it over the next rest of November.
Although we're in December now in this podcast you're listening to. Did you infect your racist uncle? You could have.
Don't pass.
Oh, by
up
this
that
time you probably
opportunity.
went to his funeral.
Oh, God.
Given how the virus works.
Yeah, like our Thanksgiving is like this weekend, and then thankfully both sides of my family, like my wife's side and my family side, they're all like, "Yeah, fucking stay home."
Yeah, that's good.
we don't even care about Thanksgiving that much, so don't worry about it. Like we're all fine. And I'm like, okay, good, because in Canada, like Thanksgiving is certainly a thing, but it's not nearly as big as it is in America, so it's never usually that big of a deal.
I force my American values onto my fiance. We celebrate American Thanksgiving as well as Canadian Thanksgiving. When I move, I get 2 Thanksgivings.
Oh, God.
You're
jealous.
like, wear the pilgrim hat.
I better see buckles on your shoes. Oh, and on your hat.
Yeah. So then comes in the thing that happens in a lot of behind the musics, but not all of them, is the reunion. Like some of them would go to the trouble of, if we can get you guys in the same room, let's reunite you. Like that happens in the Leif Garrett one, for example. They reunite him with a man he disabled through a car accident that he caused. And it's like, whoa, they're meeting each other for the first time in forever. Like some of them at least tease like, hey, Slash, would you get back together with him? with Axl, and they're like, no, I wouldn't. But they would in 2016. They actually did reunite. But this time, the reuniting is done by a guy who had his own behind the music in 1999, one Willie Nelson. And I will, because he's 87, play the official jingle.
Buzzards, I ain't dead yet.
It's weird that they draw him with red hair because his nickname was the Red-Haired Stranger, but maybe like that ended in the 70s.
Yeah. King of the Hill drew him with accurate hair.
Yeah.
But I guess because they're going to do a Pippi Longstocking joke, that's why. But yeah, the idea that Willie Nelson went to college with Hibbert, it does make me go like, how old is Hibbert? That's weird. But obviously that doesn't, it's a silly joke. It doesn't really make sense. But we get a phony award show joke about how anybody would show up to an award, which I do think is a joke about how Simpsons staff, if they would go to any award show they were nominated for.
And the fake awards are to promote awareness.
Yeah, the new awareness award. Oh, God. I love Bart
Just
going.
General awareness.
Yes. And Bart going like, I had to think about it for about a microsecond. But yes, Willie Nelson reveals that it was all a trap.
Thank you, Taco, for that loving tribute to Falco. And now to present the award for Most Violent Rap Group, Homer Simpson.
Hey!
And Marge Simpson.
What's she doing here?
And Bart and Lisa Simpson.
Hey, what's going on?
Well, I'll be honest. The new awareness awards are all an elaborate sham.
What? I knew it was too good to be true.
So this whole thing was just a trick to get us back together.
Well, I'm also trying to patch things up between Van Halen and Sammy Hagar. But the main thing is for you folks to stop this silly feud. Isn't that right, people? Hug! Hug!
Hug! Pippi Longstocking joke.
That's great. That I forgot. I goofed up there though. I should have had the clip of like, would his fence mending eggs bear fruit, or would this olive branch be torn apart by woodpeckers of mistrust?
Those are accurately rendered woodpeckers as well.
That's good. The idea of fence mending eggs bearing fruit was such a ridiculous.
Yeah, they really topped themselves with these tortured metaphors in this last act.
Yes, in case you're very confused by references to Taco and Falco, which sounds like a food in a Smash Brothers character.
I know what Falco is, but I didn't know Taco was a real performer.
Yes, yeah. He's the guy who did Puttin' on the Ritz, the 80s version of it. He is still with us. And Falco did Rock Me Amadeus, and he tragically died in a car accident at age 40 in 1998.
Oh, that was Rock Me Amadeus. Okay, yeah.
So it actually is fitting that in the year 2000, Taco would do a tribute to Falco.
And as of this recording, Eddie Van Halen passed away.
Yeah, it's sad. It's
all
sad.
The people who are worse than him and didn't die by the time of this recording really upsets me.
Man, yeah. So, it's Sammy Hagar and Eddie Van Halen. They were on the outs when this was written in '99. In 2003, Sammy Hagar did rejoin Van Halen, but then they'd have a disastrous tour where they broke up, like double broke up, like worse than they broke up the first time in 2005, apparently because Eddie Van Halen fell off the wagon during it. And so after that one, it became this big divide of like Sammy Hagar and bassist Mike Anthony, they do their own thing, while Eddie Van Halen and Alex Van Halen continued the Van Halen band, replacing Mike Anthony with Eddie's son on the bass. But as was revealed, sadly, when Eddie Van Halen passed away in October, Sammy Hagar said that he had actually reconnected with Eddie this year, but they didn't want to tell anybody because it would make people think a reunion could happen. But Sammy Hagar knew Van Halen's situation, and he was like, well, no, there's not going to be a reunion. But so yes, tragic ending for that. In the like 2008 recorded commentary, they're like, oh, they're on the outs again now. So they laughed at how it was still true. But then we come to the end. And I this was what I talked about. Like, for real, I thought this was the series finale. When Homer said this is the last season, for just a moment in my viewing, for like one day, I thought, is this really the end of the series? And in this clip, I'll play it in a sec, the last clip, they say Northern Kentucky, which is what it is in the DVD and on the show, or in the streaming version too. But I swear on my VHS version in my area, it was Massachusetts. It was Southern Massachusetts.
Yeah, they recorded quite a few variants.
Yeah. They said some were Southern Missouri. Some mentioned Oregon. They said in one place it was small island of Lanai because they didn't want to lock it down to any one place. But yes, here is the final happy clip.
The Simpsons' bitter past was forgotten, and now the future looks brighter than ever for this Northern Kentucky family.
We put all the craziness behind us, and now it's time to get back to what mattered, the show and the Sunday comic strip.
Which Homer writes himself.
So you know it's great.
Well, you little...
So, whether choking their son or poking some fun, the Simpsons will keep on gagging for years to come.
I can't believe it. We won another contest.
The Simpsons are going to Delaware.
I want to see Wilmington. I want to visit a screen door factory.
This'll be the last season.
Next week on Behind the Laughter, Huckleberry Hound.
I was so gay, but I couldn't tell anyone.
And they use that entire Delaware setup in the next season for Simpson Tall Tales. That's the first thing you hear in that episode. It sets up a trip to Delaware before they have to take the train car and hear all the tall tales from the hobo.
That's so...
I love how a variety of media has never, like mostly throughout the 90s, but I'm sure it's bled into other decades where it's just Delaware sucks.
Yeah.
No, we're in
like,
Delaware.
It's like Wayne's World. It's like Wayne's World. It's like, we're in Delaware. Delaware. It's just nothing.
Fight Club taught us that Delaware should be exploded because that's where all of our credit is
all the
kept.
Credit places. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
They don't pay no taxes.
Man, I also love like whether choking your son or poking some fun. Gagging will like that fits in with choking. Gagging will continue.
And as far as I could tell, there was never a Sunday comic strip.
There was.
Really?
Actually, for real.
I couldn't find anything on this.
Well, fortunately, not too long ago, I saw Bill Morrison comment on this on Twitter.
Oh my God, did they make him draw all of them?
Well, definitely the Bongo team worked on it. So, yes, in the year 2000, there was a Simpsons comic strip.
Oh, shit.
And it was only in Sundays. And so Bongo, which was the comic book publishing arm, as Bill Morrison recalled on Twitter, this is his version of events, I'm paraphrasing, in the United Kingdom, they okayed a Simpsons comic strip. And so, like, okay, only for the United Kingdom. It'll be in their funky newspapers. But then a U.S. press syndicate was like, hey, we want this Simpsons comic strip. And so, as Morrison put it, it was drawn to be a 2/3 of a page big. Like, it was a huge chunk of a Sunday comic page full of not just a comic strip, but also like activity stuff. Like, it was meant to be a silly, fun thing. But because it was so huge, if a newspaper in the United States got it, it kicked off like 3 other comic strips at least. And so when newspapers did it, he said that the locals were really pissed off that their favorite comic got kicked out for this Simpsons comic. So it turned out to be very unpopular in the markets that got it in the U.S. And when the year was over, that was the end of it. And it never got an official collection. You'd have to scan newsprint to have any of these saved.
That's crazy. So I guess they were thinking like, well, yeah, this will probably run forever, this new thing that's happened. I thought it was just some bongo bashing.
I think it is a little bongo bashing, though. You're right, Bob, of the writers. The way Bart said that, it takes me back to Tim's story saying like, oh, those comics suck. But
these writers didn't go to an Ivy League school.
But I was shocked to find out that when they make this joke in 2000, there actually was a Sunday comic strip. I think I got pissed when I saw that as a youngster because I was like, hey, it's not in my neighborhood. I don't see a Sunday comic strip. These are lies. And I was still a dedicated Sunday Funnies reader. But the last bit about Huckleberry Hound, me and my jocular pals would say that many a time. time to each other. I was so gay.
So what element of Huckleberry Hound is different in that drawing to make him not an official
I don't think
drawing?
any is different. Yeah, I think it's... Well, Mark Kirkland worked on Hanna-Barbera stuff, so I think he actually helped keep it on model.
I was like, how is that a parody? It's just the character.
Yeah. But hearing him say, "I was so gay," even though I'd say Snagglepuss is the gayest of... If you got to pick the gayest Hanna-Barbera character, I think Snagglepuss is gay.
Yeah, Huckleberry Hound's just an Andy Griffith ripoff.
Yeah.
He's straight as an arrow.
Well, I don't know about that. But, Andy Griffith's wife is dead, really?
Oh,
I
right.
don't think so. I think that's a cover.
This handsome bachelor sheriff.
But yeah, that was a really fun finale to a weird-ass season. I think that the punchiness of this season of going crazy works perfectly in this parody setting. And also in strange timing to this being our Christmas episode, this episode will take you out with Simpsons Christmas Boogie just like the episode does. So.
Yeah, I feel like the mean-spiritedness and punchiness of these seasons, it's more palatable when it's not applied to like the reality of these characters. It's just a lot more fun when you're removed from that. So I think it works the best here.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, man, any closing thoughts yourself?
When I saw this at the time, I forgot to throw this in when you were talking about it originally. But like, yeah, I got Kentucky for. I remember very specifically Kentucky was the city that Canada got, I guess, in the rebroadcast. So I even then I was like, oh, that's just a dumb gag because this isn't a real episode, you know. So
yeah.
That shouldn't hold any weight. But until you guys just said it now, I had no idea that other regions got other, and it makes total sense. Other regions got others or other cities to throw everyone off the scent, I guess. I really liked when you said like the reasoning for this whole episode was like, oh, we kind of have to do a clip show or the 138th Spectacular. I'm sure it's a little bit of that in here too. That have kind of, you know, we can save a bit of money by having a few clips. A lot of these jokes, like I haven't watched this particular episode in quite a long time, but a lot of these jokes were like, you know, I had a really good time watching this one in particular. And like I said, I've reused stolen jokes wholesale from this episode in my own work, as I am wont to do a lot. So I really enjoyed it. And I mean, season 11, it's like after, you know, I want to say 2-3 more. I'm sure we've talked about this in the past, like whenever I've been on the show, but it's like, I don't think it's that far out where I started catching episodes less frequently, like, you know, somewhere around season 11, 12, 13, something like that. So going back to this particular episode was a nice blast from the past.
No, yeah, we thank you so much for joining us again, Matt. This was so dense and full of references that we were going at lightning speed, but just to get it all in.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt, thank you again for coming. And I mean, where can people find all of your great stuff?
Thanks for so much for having me. You can find me on YouTube at Matt McMuscles. We've already referenced it once or twice, but I do a series called What Happened, looking at, you know, video games with tortuous development cycles or movies or consoles or et-ceteras. And I also am currently hopefully finishing my kind of narrated where I sort of guide your hips through Simpsons Hit and Run, which I think I talked to you about. I think I talked to you guys about this specifically. It's like, man, going back to that game, joke-wise, authenticity-wise, it still very much holds up, but in terms of like actual minute-to-minute gameplay, Simpsons Hit and Run just it loses steam after you play as like Lisa, and after that, and that's like the third level, and after that it just kind of goes downhill. It's just very repetitive and just gets hard to the point where it's just not enjoyable. Usually when you're a YouTuber and you make like a series and you start saying like, yeah, this is getting a little rough, you kind of anticipate everyone telling you how wrong you are and, you know, get good and all the associated things that they yell at you. But I was actually kind of shocked to see the amount of people. It's like, yeah, you're getting into those missions that were when I replay Hit and Run, I stop playing Hit and Run. I get to these certain missions. So I feel you. So that was a nice change of pace. But yeah, you can also find me on Twitter at Matt McMuscles as well.
Even so, Hit Run is like Dark Souls compared to Space Mutants or any of those older ones. It's like a stellar, amazing game.
Definitely. Like even the Super, like I'd still rather play Space Mutants on the NES than like the Super Nintendo or the Genesis ones, because those were just like barely games.
Mini
They're like a
games.
bunch of mini games, really, and it's kind of. Yeah. I thought one of them wasn't like, oh no, it's an actual level, but the level based game. Then I was like, oh god, that's Krusty's Super Fun House is what I'm thinking of. It still boggles my mind as how that was even greenlit, but whatever.
Man, but thank you so much,
thank
man.
you, Matt.
We'd love to have you back in the next seasons we do.
Thank you so much, guys.
So thank you so much to Matt McMuscles for being on the show. Check out all of his stuff. And as for us, if you want to check out more of our stuff and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there. You'll get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall that we've made since the very beginning of this Patreon 3.5 years ago. That'll all be yours the second you sign up, and that includes all of our limited miniseries, the most recent of which is wrapping up now, and that's Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2. We are doing the back half of Futurama's second season using the Talking Simpsons format, and that is only on the Patreon along with all of the other existing episodes of Talking Futurama. It's all waiting for you right there for $5 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. But if you sign up for $10 a month, you get all of the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one mega long podcast once a month only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Why, I'm talking about the What a Cartoon movie. Every month we do a What a Cartoon movie, which is us covering an animated feature film in the same way we cover The Simpsons or other cartoon series on our What a Cartoon podcast. But it's only once a month in full for our $10 and up patrons. They get to hear often over 4 hours of us talking about a different animated film as varied as Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, or Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and a huge back catalog as well. Over 100 hours of exclusive extra podcasts in addition to all the $5 stuff if you sign up at the $10 premium level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast, by the way, is Retronauts. That's a classic gaming podcast about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 exclusive episodes every month that aren't on the free feed. Henry, what about you?
Why, I'm Henry Gilbert. Follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. I'm sure I'm wishing you all of happy holidays on there right now if you follow me. And of course, please follow the official Twitter account of this podcast at Talk Simpsons Pod. You stay informed whenever cool stuff comes out. Free feed, Patreon, exclusives, polls, all that stuff. You're in the loop if you're a follower at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter.
So that is the end of Season 11. Before we move on to what we do next, we're going to give you guys in the feed our full-length episode of What a Cartoon Movie about the Iron Giant that's coming to you to wrap up 2020, and we will see you next week.
Simpsons Christmas Boogie. We're dancing to the beat. We'll make you move your feet. Simpsons Christmas Boogie. Simpsons Christmas Boogie. Simpsons Christmas Boogie.
In that family, nobody trusted nobody. They even brought their lawyers to Thanksgiving dinner. So, how's everybody doing?
You don't have to answer that.
Shut up, all of you, or I'll sue.
Oh, save it for your next book, you little snitch.
That's assault. That is assault.
It was the best Thanksgiving ever. I mean, emotionally, it was terrible. But the turkey was so moist.
92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
All because of a fancy bike?
It's not just a bike. Peloton makes treadmills, too.
All treadmills are the same.
Our treadmills can adjust speed and incline automatically, so you never break your stride. Whether you're squeezing in a power walk or training for a marathon, Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try the Peloton Tread risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.